So, today I want to talk to you a little bit about why decisions need to be led by the data and by the gut to a certain extent. So, I'm going to start off by defining a term you may or may not have heard, and that is epistemology. So, epistemology is the study of how we know what we know. It's a branch of philosophy, and it's relevant here because knowledge is what we base our decisions on. So, understanding that there are different kinds of knowledge is important when influencing other people in making a decision. So, by definition, decisions are generally not cut and dry. If all of the evidence is on one side, then the decision it's not really a decision, it's made for you. True decisions come with costs and benefits, and weighing these is the nature of a decision. So it requires information and judgment involves evaluating risks and the knowledge one has acquired through years of experience, however many those may be. So in our society, people tend to be data people, and sometimes data people can become stuck in analysis paralysis, which is kind of a funny term, meaning you just can't get out of analyzing and analyzing and analyzing to the point where you can make a decision. And then another big group in our society are the people who are led by their gut. I just feel this way. This seems right to me. But sometimes those people have a hard time articulating why that is. So being able to really look at something in a way that requires analysis, even if it's not traditional data analysis. So there are many types of knowledge, and these are valued to a greater or lesser degree in various societies. Sometimes relying on a particular type or a certain type of knowledge is so ingrained in a particular culture that um, suggesting that you can know something in a different way or that the information you have leads to a different decision or fact even can be cultural heresy. So case in point would be Galileo, who was not killed, but he was jailed for the rest of his life for claiming that the earth is round and not flat, based on his calculations and the knowledge he had about geometry and astronomy. So this is how deeply, just one example of how deeply knowledge can be ingrained within a culture, and whether that culture values using observation and the scientific method, whether the culture bases its knowledge in religious texts or gathering people's experiences and handing that knowledge down through story or through collecting data, which is kind of the trend, well, part of the trend we're going through in our society and world right now. So, decision making. Many times when people make decisions, small and large, it can be based out of emotion, such as fear. Fear is the strongest emotion, and it is the basis of a lot of advertising to influence people to make decisions based on emotion. This can be especially true if a person is in crisis because, and it doesn't matter if it's a person or a business, this can be true, making a decision. Right now, we have the president of the United States has a big decision to make. And this sort of knowledge and different aspects of knowledge and self-knowledge are all going into how what the president decides to do, whether he decides to stay running for the Democratic Party or if he decides to step aside. So that is a huge decision with consequences for many, many, many people. Conversely, so sometimes we can rely a little bit too much on our gut. Conversely, we can also rely a little too much on the data. and think we have all the data we need without seeing maybe there's some data that isn't there and we're just not seeing it because, as we saw earlier in our class, we're just being hemmed in by what is there. So we have to free our mind to think of what is not there and what other information could we need. We may think to ourselves, something isn't right here, even though I have all this information. But it's so easy to second guess ourselves. We're sitting in a meeting with other people, and it's easy to second guess ourselves and think, oh, okay, all that information is there. They must be right. So if something, that's where you kind of, you want to listen to your gut, listen to the little thoughts in the back of your head that say, mm, I have a slightly different feel or take on this. So it's really about balancing, right? Balancing these different approaches. So you want to try to take, when decision making, a moderate and more thoughtful approach, I feel, and this is true for individuals or businesses when making decisions. So, for example, somebody in sales or another business capacity may have all the data they need to make a standard business decision about the strategy their company is going to take going forward to grow the business. Okay, a common business development strategy, so a common issue. But those same people, especially people who have been with the company for a while, they may know their longtime clients really well, have had lots of conversations, lunches, different experiences with them. And they may have knowledge about what makes those clients tick, what makes them stay with the company or leave. These are types of information that are not always easily captured in data. So people who use the combination of the data and the background information they have through their experience with clients, for example, tend to be able to use both of those kinds of data to make strategic decisions. According to Harvard Business Review, the best decision makers are so-called informed skeptics. So what that means is they're people who have gathered as much data as possible, but still question it, look at it from the information from other points of view, and also listen to what their years of experience is telling them. So I would say, rather than listening to our guts, which can be very sort of like, oh, just based on your feelings, a lot of bias can be introduced that way because it's based on experience and emotion. Still trying to take that emotion out, but just understanding, psychologically, more global issues that are happening. What are the decisions that would be best in the situation? Because by definition, data is based on the past. Now, we can have forecast data, but forecasts are always forecasts, so they haven't happened yet. So a decision happens before that forecast comes true. So we want to be able to make the best decision based on our experiences in the world and the hard data we have. So bringing that together will allow us to make the best decision possible. Now, sometimes things happen and we've made the absolute best decision we can, and something completely out of our control happens. COVID, for example, or a big earthquake or something like that. So you had all these plans to open up your business or to expand your business, and boom, an earthquake happened. And now your building has collapsed or something. And now what are you going to do? So that whole strategy, it's out the window. You have to come back to square one and start thinking about, what are you going to do next? So yes, we can make the best decisions to the best of our ability, but even sometimes that will go awry. Don't blame yourself if a decision doesn't pan out. You're making a judgment. And when making a judgment, you want just the best information that you can have. So what I want to leave you here with today is to realize that no matter how much work you put into telling a story with data to influence decision makers in your organization. Other factors may come into play, whether that be other people's experience, other situations in the world as what could happen. Um, so, but even with that, you want to use your data to make the best recommendation you can and use your data analysis skills in a thoughtful way. So, I ask you to do a little self reflection. How do you make decisions? What are your own personal patterns for decision making? Do you base your decisions on an emotion like fear, or on an emotion like desire, or out of family expectations? Or are you making those decisions out of the data? And do you have all the data you need? So I want to leave you with that today, just as sort of a little philosophical take on the nature of data and how it is a reflection, one reflection of who we are as humans. Thank you for watching.